All right, I'm here with my good friend Shane Frazier, the mind and body expert. This man has dove into so many different modalities that has helped him realize the disconnect or the reconnect of how the mind and body works, the nervous system, and how that affects your overall life, your well-being, and what are some things you can do and you could try and access to navigate the mind body system. So with no further ado, my good friend Shane Frazier, glad to have you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where to go from this exactly, but I mean, like you mentioned, and looks like I lost you. Oh, there you are. There you're back. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're starting to say that I've tried almost everything. I mean, literally everything. Like I was mentioning before, I've been deep in the Amazon jungle, ayahuasca 19 times, worked with a EMDR therapist. I've done emotional intelligence training seminars, the same thing that you and I have done. What else? I mean, when I was trying to conquer social anxiety and stuttering, I signed up for door-to-door sales, and I did that 60 hours a week for 5 months, then found out that just brute force willpower doesn't really fix it. What else? I mean, I think I mentioned I've tried all of like the plant medicines, the ceremonies, the journaling, the somatic experiencing. I mean, what else? I mean, there's probably some other things, but so in a nutshell, well, I mean, did you have like a specific question before I just kind of like go on and on, or?
No, I do. I do. Well, first, everyone needed to know all of that about you, all the different modalities from the, 19 times with ayahuasca. Hell, we can start there. What do you feel like, as far as plant medicine and these types of things? Do you feel like these things are necessary to be able to dive deeper and kind of, take away these borders that the nervous system and the mind has created through trauma, through accidents, through all sorts of things that have happened? Do you feel like ayahuasca or plant, we'll just say plant medicine in general, do you feel like that really opens up the mind and the nervous system to receive these new forms of being, these new ways of living?
Yeah, I mean, although I definitely believe in the power of plant medicines like ayahuasca, psilocybin, and stuff like that, I believe that's only like one piece of the pie, one piece of the puzzle. Because I believe that, like in my opinion, and also from like talking to like ChatGPT, I really believe that plant medicines and stuff really impact someone more on a psychological level. Like, for example, let's say someone might have a bad relationship with their parents. Maybe their dad was like overbearing. And by having a ayahuasca ceremony, they are able to kind of like step back, see the situation with their father from like a different lens and think, although my dad was hurting me in a way, he was just hurt himself. And hurt people. And maybe mentally, after a ceremony like that, someone might be able to say, forgive their father, or forgive whatever situation that was kind of like troubling them. But more on a psychological level. But that's more of the mental level, but you still need to address the body level, like the somatics of it. Because when someone experiences, like a trauma in their life, let's go with the same example. Let's say it's a overbearing parent or whatever trauma threat in your life, it's going to be expressed in the body. For example, when we experience traumas, one of the main one of the main threat sensors of the nervous system, for example, is the jaw and the pelvic floor. So when there's a threat, whether if it's the saber-toothed tiger that you're trying to run away from, whether if it's the overbearing parents that you could not fight, you couldn't flee from, so then you froze, or if it's the never-ending to-do list, whatever it is, when there's a threat, a perceived threat in front of you, your jaw is going to clench up, your pelvic floor is going to clench up, and then even when there's no actual threat in front of you, whether if it's the parents, the saber-toothed tiger, or whatever, even if there's nothing in front of you, that tension is still there. And then your nervous system is still reading that tension, saying, there's tension in the jaw, so therefore there's a threat. So then we need to prepare the person for the threat. So we're going to speed up the heart. We're going to make the breathing more shallow. This might manifest as, you become more withdrawn socially. Maybe you're always on guard. You're scanning for threats and stuff. So where I was going with this is something like ayahuasca, plant medicines can address things on a psychological level. Like you can see things from a different perspective, but it's not going to release the tension from your jaw. And as long as that's there, you're still going to be the same person for the most part, creating the same situations in life.
Interesting. So, what do you think people can do to really start to remove the trauma from the nervous system? Because you mentioned that plant medicine is something that can attach itself to the psychological aspect of removing the trauma, removing the hurts, the pains, the past issues. So, what are some things that people, listeners, could do to really go even deeper and get into to the nervous system, to where now, like you're saying, your physical body is affected by the past issues that you have? What are some things that people could do, different healing modalities or different steps that they could do to go into the nervous system and go into the physical aspect of removing the trauma?
Yeah, really good question. And a couple, like for example, a couple of therapists that I'm actually working with myself. So keep in mind, I'm still in the journey. I'm not claiming to be someone that's like at the finish line, even though there's really no sort of finish line. But so I'm working with a craniosacral therapist, and I strongly believe that, and after trying all these different things, I strongly believe that like I'm going to be getting the most benefit from this one therapist, and that's what I would highly recommend to anyone, because a cranial, like cranium, and sacral, which is your sacrum, like your pelvic floor area. This type of therapist is going to be working specifically with these two things. They're going to be working with your cranial nerves. Because, for example, your cranial nerves all connects to your vagus
Wait,
nerve, which is like the
could you tell the viewers what is cranial?
yeah. Well, it's a therapist that is going to specialize in things of the cranium, things of like jaw tension, pelvic floor tension, everything related to the nervous system. They're specializing in things related to the cranial nerves, and all of these things are deeply intertwined with your nervous system. So, for example, by working with a craniosacral therapist to release tension in your jaw and pelvic floor, that is going to be improving the health, like the health of your nervous system, therefore changing how you're showing up in the world. And what else? What else to mention? Oh, I was starting to mention that craniosacral therapist is going to be focusing on like cranial nerves. So you have 12 cranial nerves, five of which are specifically for your social engagement. So, for example, if your nervous system is stuck in one of the lower states, you're not going to be very socially engaged. You might be antisocial, asocial. That's been kind of like my case, where a lot of times I could force myself to be social, but it's kind of like it's burning energy, and as opposed to like giving me energy. And it's very possible that's related to cranial nerves. So you have the trigeminal nerve in your jaw. You have another one that's for like your facial expression, for your eyesight, for your hearing, all sorts of different cranial nerves. And the craniosacral therapist is doing things to heal what's going on with
You know what's most fascinating for me is how all of these different ways of, I guess, looking at the nervous system, how past issues affects your overall, like you said, I'll use your words, how you show up day to day. Like, who knew that, oh, because I've had some traumatic incident in the past, it makes me socially awkward, or it makes me have social anxiety, or instead of me being in social settings, instead of it fueling me, it really drains me. And it's not because, oh, I don't want to go out and hang out with people, or I would rather just stay inside and not be social. It's like, no, past issues that weren't healed, that didn't get worked on, let's say by craniotherapy or ayahuasca or all these different modalities, who knew that this could show up later on in my life and affect how I
yeah.
interact with people day to day. So it's fascinating to me, like, that we don't realize. And I wrote a book recently called The World Is Watching. And the book, basically, the
Mm.
premise of it is, even though we don't know it, people can see what's going on with us. And it shows up in how we interact with people, how we talk to people, if we talk to them at all. So I'd love to hear,
Mm.
how do you feel
Yeah.
like it's helped you? Like, how do you feel like going into the nervous system, physically and mentally, emotionally? How do you think this has helped you? What have you noticed from starting stuff like this?
Yeah. Now, of course, keep in mind, in my case, I just recently started working with this therapist, so I've only had, actually, I had another appointment today, so just today was my third session so far. I can't, so definitely be beneficial to have this conversation again, say after a month, 6 months, 12 months. But so far, I've noticed changes, which are very subtle. If I wasn't looking for them, if I wasn't paying attention to them, I may have missed them. But the things that I've noticed, and then talking to like Chat GBT, these are actually like huge things. So, like for example, I noticed myself feeling like a little bit more socially open. Where one example, so I'm actually here in India, and after one of my appointments, I was walking back home. I was sitting next to the Ganges River, and then this lady comes up to me trying to sell me some flowers, like put in the river to bless the river or something. Usually, like if that was just say a couple days earlier, I would have felt like agitated, kind of like you're invading my space, you're robbing me of my solitude. Like, who the hell do you think you are? Maybe I would have like, you know, entertained that for like 2 seconds before I just like walked up and just left the area. Like, maybe I'll just go home now. That's how I probably would have been just a few days earlier. But when she approached me, like I felt open. I didn't want the flowers. I didn't buy the flowers, but I just politely said, no, not interested. And then I was just kind of like playing with her a little bit. I just said like one of the one few phrases that I know in Hindi, "Maine pant mein hug diya." I pooped my pants. I mean, so yeah, I was just having fun with her. I was just like, and she kept talking in Hindi. Obviously I didn't know what she was saying, and it just seemed like a light, playful interaction where, although I couldn't understand what she was saying, it seemed like she was being playful. I was being playful, and so that's an example of being in what's called ventral vagal. So in terms of like polyvagal theory, when you're in ventral vagal, that's when you're in these social engagement stage. So you're socially open when you have a social interaction. It just flows. It feels fluid. When you're in say like dorsal vagal, you might be in what's called shutdown, freeze, or something else. Social interactions, you could force them. I've forced plenty of social interactions in the past, but it's like it's burning energy. It's like, you know, you just want to get out of there, even if there's no real reason to like actually want to get out of there. Another small example of what I've experienced from the craniosacral therapies is I've started to get a little bit more body awareness, which is huge because I'm someone who's rather disconnected from my body, disconnected from my interoception, having a awareness of what's going on inside of your body. And so yeah, it's just like I've started to feel like parts of my body more. It may not sound like very much, but it's huge because it's kind of like, the things that I've experienced, it's kind of like there's this gigantic iceberg, but now the iceberg is just starting to melt and it's, drip, drip before eventually there's going to be like this whole like collapse of the iceberg. And from all the different things that like the books that I've read, working with a EMDR therapist, I've come to the conclusion, and I'm very confident that, for example, or most, if not all, of the obstacles that I've experienced in life boils down to being disconnected from my body. Yeah, I'll say that again, being disconnected from my body.
Yeah,
Looks like you have a
yeah.
question or a comment, sir.
I say it again, and you said it again. I was like, could you say that again for the people in the back? A lot of the things that you have experienced comes from the being disconnected with your body. Let's talk about that. Do you feel like, based on what you're saying in your experience and like your own personal experience and reading the books and doing the dance and singing the songs, that okay, the relationships I do or do not have were kind of predicated on me feeling the being able to feel the emotions of connection and feel the emotions of friendship and being open emotionally to those types of interactions. Can you talk about that as far as how do you feel like healing yourself gives you better access to relationships, whether it's romantic, whether it's friends, and how not being able to work on yourself and not realizing how that affects you, how it distanced you from having romantic relationships or connections and things like that.
Man, you're opening up Pandora's box. This is a huge topic. Where do I start? Yeah, I mean that's going to change everything, everything. So I mean, in my case, I've been a bit emotionally unavailable. Just so I'm not, for example, like your average person in a typical day, their emotions might be kind of like a roller coaster going up and down. Whereas me, I'm just kind of like flat, where nothing is like super great, nor is anything super terrible. And from having that emotional unavailability, like for example, the women that I've attracted into my life, even like the friendships that I've attracted in my life, I've been like a heat-seeking missile for abandonment. I've attracted so many women who have experienced abandonment in their life. I don't say that to judge, but just you know, with those things being unresolved within themselves, it's not a recipe for a very healthy relationship. And it's more than likely it's because, when a woman or really just a person has well, let's talk about like intimate partners relationships. When a woman has experienced abandonment, she would have either had a father who was physically unavailable, like he just wasn't there, he left, never came back, or he was emotionally unavailable. He was there, maybe working too much, just not expressive. So by me being emotionally unavailable, that's familiar to her. So because our egos, our psyche, it doesn't go towards what's healthy. It goes towards what we know, what's familiar. And if having a male figure who is emotionally unavailable, if that is what's familiar, then I'm going to attract women who are, you know, who have experienced like abandonment. If we want to get into attachment styles, I would have been more of a avoidant attachment style. So therefore I will attract a anxious attachment style. And so I believe that by reconnecting with my body, therefore reconnecting with my emotions, it will bring me closer towards a secure attachment style. So therefore, I will be attracting more like a woman, more of a secure attachment style as well. Yeah.
Did you read that book Attached? Because it sounds like you did.
Bro, I've read all of them.
He knows about attachment styles. I was like, yeah, it's so funny. I saw one of my friends had that book on his wall or something. Yeah, and such a beautiful point. So you're saying that you don't really attract the person you want. You attract the person that's most familiar with what's going on with you energetically.
Yeah,
Wow, wow. And so if you
absolutely.
want getting healthier relationships, then you have to look at yourself, how you're showing up energetically and saying, okay, if I'm still dealing with my issues, then as much as I would love to be in love or attract Mr. or Mrs. Right, I'm only going to attract a person that I'm energetically aligned with. Like if I'm still trapped in trauma, if I'm still, in bondage, in my nervous system from all of those things, and I haven't taken the time to heal in those spaces, then instead of me attracting the person that I would really want to have in my life, I'm only going to attract the person that I'm showing up as, like my almost like my cousin in that way, not literally, but yeah.
Cousin.
Now,
I know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. Because like and if we're to put this in like nervous system terms, so everyone's attachment style lines up with the state of your nervous system. So to give like the listeners like a brief breakdown of like the stages of the nervous system according to polyvagal theory, you can imagine it like a ladder. So you have at the very top safe and social, and then fight, flight, freeze, and then shut down. And when, as opposed to the animal kingdom, so in the animal kingdom, when an animal experiences trauma, the zebra gets chased by the lion. When it escapes, it just starts physically shaking and it discharges that trauma. Humans, we get stuck. So we get stuck in these stages where someone could stay stuck in flight, you could stay stuck in fight, stuck in shutdown, or whatever it may be. and someone who has a anxious attachment style. Just a brief background on anxious attachment styles. These are the ones who are they need constant reassurance, like Shane, like where were you? Why did you take so long to answer my message? Like who was that message by? I'm like, that was my sister texting me. Tell me that you love me. Like what if you move out of this city, and just on and on and on. So it's like the very insecure, basically it's saying like the energy of their interactions is going to be tell me that you love me, reassure me that you love me. And someone of
They need
a more avoidant attachment style is going to be more like a aloof. And what's that?
they need constant reassurance.
Oh yeah, big time. Big time. And what I was getting at is like someone who has a anxious attachment style, if you look at that in terms of their nervous system, more than likely their nervous system is stuck in fight, where it's like they're kind of like you could think of it as they're fighting for love, or at least in that situation. And someone who is of a avoidance attachment style, you might be in say like the freeze or shutdown stage of like the nervous system. And when you get down to like all the way down to shutdown, which is the lowest stage. If this is the animal kingdom, this is when the gazelle is in the mouth of the lion. It was not able to fight it. It couldn't get away. And now it's in the mouth of the lion. So it turns numb. It disassociates from its body. So it doesn't feel like the pain of being ripped apart. In humans, of course, there's no lion chasing us, but in humans, you still disassociate from your body. So you're disconnected from your body, disconnected from your emotions and all these different things. And therefore, in terms of relationships, you're attracting the overly anxious, jealous, where have you been girlfriends, stuff like that.
Wow. Yeah, it's so fascinating because even as I'm listening to you, it just makes so much sense. This is like the moment you started working on yourself and giving yourself that attention, that care that's definitely necessary, then you start attracting better quality relationships, people that aren't dealing with the same issues that you're dealing with or vice versa. So it's interesting how healing your nervous system, healing your mind and body gives you access to better, not only a better relationship with yourself, but better intimate
And it looks like
relationships. It gives
you're
you access to
frozen.
better, deeper connections with your friend circle just by going in and starting to, tap into what's going on with you in these traumatic moments or in your past, and how all of this spills over into your normal relationships if you don't take care of it. If you, are not taking the time to go on a healing journey, to dabble into plant medicine, to go into craniosacral therapy, just knowing that if I don't work on me, this not only shows up for me, but it shows up in my interactions with others. So this has just been really fascinating for me, Shane. Thank you.
Of course. So, Gerald, my internet froze for about the past 30 seconds. So I didn't hear anything you said. Could you say that again, please?
Yeah, no, I was just saying it's interesting how all of the modalities, all of these things, like not working on yourself attracts certain kinds of issues that you're still dealing with. And when you start to work on yourself, you start to give yourself the freedom to have better quality relationships, whether it's intimately, whether it's in your friend circle. And I was just saying, thank you for showing our viewers and showing the listeners, wait a minute, if you start to work on yourself, you now become a better you, a better version of yourself. But now you have better relationships intimately. Now you have better relationships with just connecting, because instead of giving off this energy of I'm anxious, I have trauma, whatever the deal is, you're now the better version of you, which is ultimately that's what we want. We want better connections, we want stronger commitments, we want lasting
Yeah,
relations. But little did we know that until we go in and start working on us, we don't have access to those types of relationships, because we're just going to attract who we are in that moment. And so I'm just very grateful that you're sharing with our viewers, listen, if you want better quality whatever, you're gonna have to start working on yourself.
absolutely. Yeah, if you want better quality anything, better quality relationships, intimate relationships, friendships, business opportunities, it all starts with you because wherever you go, there you are. And even just on that one little topic, I mean, for example, Medellin, Colombia, I was living there for 3 years, and I saw and I met countless people who had been all over the world, people who had been to like over like 100 countries, maybe 150 countries. And I could see that there was just so many like emotionally unwell people. And whether if they realized it or not, it really seemed like when they were like traveling to like all these different countries constantly, it was really just it seemed like they're trying to run away from something. Now, of course, I like to travel. I'm in India. I was in Colombia for a while, but like I said, so many people that I saw that were in like a different country every week, every couple weeks. It really seemed like that they were running away from something, and I had a entrepreneur co-living for about a year and a half. This is also like down south, Colombia, and so many of the people that live there. It seemed like I was a magnet for guys with daddy issues. Seriously. So women, I had been a magnet for abandonment, and guys, I had been a heat-seeking missile for guys with like daddy issues. And uh, I mean, I could go in so many directions with that, but would you happen to have a? Is there something that catches your attention about the last things that I mentioned that maybe you have like a deeper question that you like to ask her?
No, no, I think that's interesting. It just goes back to what you were saying. Like you become a magnet for things that you're